Good morning. I am Steve Weber, the host of the American Gumption Morning Show, broadcasting here on Spirituality Gone Wild and also on the American Gumption Facebook page and American Gumption YouTube channel. So welcome to Wednesday, February 17th, show number 128. Alrighty, so yeah, I've got a great guest coming up, a couple guests coming up actually, but our main guest will be appearing at about half past the hour, and she is Rebecca Glenski Coppage, and she is the author of the brand new book, 100 Days to Self-Love, 100 Days to Self-Love. So we'll get into how we can all be kinder and gentler to ourselves with some self-love in the second half of today's show. And my monologue to open up the show is going to be polite self-talk. And that's a little bit about self-love. That's my own experience in learning how to tame that voice inside my head and get it under control. Well, not get it under control, but at least learn how to coexist and live with it. And then, of course, we have the Fitness Misfit segment with Stacy Redfield, and that'll be at about 15 past the hour. And she'll do about a 15-minute segment, and she's going to bust some myths on fitness today. So she's got a couple of pet peeves that she wants to tell us about. So we'll let Stacy do her thing. She joins us once a month. She's been a guest here before, but she's got a regular segment now since the beginning of the year. All righty, so let's let me tell you about what's happening the rest of the week. Thursday, tomorrow, Serenity Sam Sing a Song, a brand new segment. We're going to try it every other week for the next couple of months and see how it goes. Serenity Sam has her own show here on Spirituality Gone Wild, and she'll be joining us on Thursdays, every other Thursday, and we'll do a sing a song tomorrow. And so that's going to come up again at the after the monologue. We'll bring Serenity Sam on, and then Friday I have an interview set up with Jay Toops. He is the CEO of BioRoot Energy, and their vision is to turn waste carbons into fuel alcohols. So it's really quite fascinating technology. I met Jay several years ago and got familiar with it. I did a little bit of chemistry in my background, and so I kind of understood what was going on at a basic level. So we'll see how that goes. All righty. So that's on Friday. Jay Toops, CEO of BioRoot Energy. All righty. So let's go ahead and shift into the monologue. And again, the monologue title today is self-talk, polite self-talk. All righty. So yesterday's monologue was taming that voice inside your head. And this is kind of a follow-up to that, or really a continuation of that. But basically, that voice inside our head just likes to talk to us all day long and yabber and jabber, and it can cause real chaos if we're allowing it to just run wild. And so in my own awakening, 2009, when I did my first year of transformation, my year of awakening, I realized that voice was very active inside my head. And, I didn't even, before that, I didn't even necessarily pay attention to it. I didn't realize it existed and, did what it did. So anyway, I became aware of it. That was the first thing. And then once I was aware of it, I started actually listening to what it was saying. And I found out it wasn't very nice. It wasn't being a very nice little voice. It wasn't saying things that were helpful to me. So, what I did was I started to modify my behavior, modify that chatter. And it wasn't like I was able to modify the chatter right off the bat. It was more like becoming aware of it and then listening to it. And then at that point, you begin to, hear what it's saying. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm not talking very nicely to myself. And so it's really a kind of a negative talk that we do to ourselves. And of course, it's the ego that's running wild inside of us. And so, what did my voice say to me? It used to say stuff like, you dummy, you stupid, that was stupid thing to do. And it was always an attempt to shame myself into some kind of better behavior. Maybe it was because of, just like, you get like, teachers at school and parents that, do this, don't do that, that kind of talk. It was kind of an exaggerated version of that. I didn't remember my parents talking specifically that way to me. But you start like at least in my case, I thought, gee, if I really reprimand myself, maybe I'll get smarter about it. So you say, you dummy, that wasn't a good thing to do. And it was a kind of an attempt to shame myself into better behavior, and lots of shouldas, couldas, wouldas, really, kind of, you just second guessing, reprimanding, admonishing. It was kind of a form of yelling at myself. And somehow you thought, oh, if I just yell at myself loud enough, I'll behave better. But what happened was that yelling, that negative talk, chatter, was really kind of defeating me and not necessarily helping. Well, it was absolutely not helping. It was it was a downer. So as I became aware of it, I thought the first thing to do would become, try to at least neutralize that talk. So once I would catch myself, doing something like that, and became aware that it was happening I listened to what it was saying. I'd sort of talk back to it and say something. I try to temper it or counter it with something more neutral. And, okay, maybe, if I said, oh, that was a dumb thing to do, I'd say, well, okay, it wasn't the greatest choice, but at least I learned something from it. And, oh, now I know better. I'm not going to, repeat that necessarily going forward. So it's kind of like just initially trying to neutralize it and not like turn it completely around. And then once you start to neutralize it, then you even go further and you want to make it a positive. And wow, that gives me an opportunity to try, this or that, and try something new. And I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't gone through that experience. So again, these were all things I started to say to myself to try to counter that voice and to become more positive, because I realized that, shaming myself wasn't helping, wasn't beneficial. And I started to look for gratitude in things that occurred. What could I be grateful for? You have an experience that doesn't necessarily work out the way you want it to. Well, rather than get mad and, get down on myself, I started to think, well, what's the benefit from it? What's the one thing that I learned that will help me out from it? So some of my favorite sayings, things that I started to say on a regular basis, is, it's okay, I'm on the right track now. And I did that a lot. I would say, like, okay, I'm feeling much, better about it. I feel like I'm on the right path. Okay, I'm not exactly where I want to be at this point, but I'm heading in the right direction. I didn't even know necessarily sometimes where I was heading in my career of the last decade. After the Gumption thing came to an end, it was just like, okay, but I'm going in the right direction, and things are always working out for me. I know that it's going to all be good. I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to it. So I just was able to become aware of it, and it's not that the doubts don't happen, but when they do happen, when that negative chatter starts, I don't let it just go on and rampage for, just over and over and over again. I bring it up and try to neutralize it, and then try to turn it into some form of a positive. Alrighty, so that's that. Now, I've got a little bit of a issue with my computer, where it's hesitating. I think it's coming through okay out there, but it is certainly sluggish on my end. So I'm going to, I see our guests are both lined up and ready to go. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask them to, just sit tight for a minute. I'm going to restart my browser because it's just not, it's going to be too annoying for me to do it. So I will be back in just 1 minute. I'm going to just quit Chrome and restart it. And I hope that this will bring me back and have a better connection going. So I'll be right back. All righty. I hope this is going to work better. So thanks for being patient there, just as I did that. All righty. Well, let's go ahead and continue with the show. Our fitness misfit is lined up in the green room. Stacy Redfield. Let's go ahead and bring her on live. Welcome her back to the American Gumption Morning Show for her once a month regular visit. Hello, Stacy. Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, that looks much better. You were kind of in slow motion there for a little while. So yeah, that looks way better.
100% right, but and you've got a different backdrop this week. I don't see your studio behind you.
I don't have my studio behind me today. So my studio is in front of me today instead of behind me.
All righty. But I do hear the construction going on as usual.
They're still up there. They are the noisiest neighbors ever. And of course, this is when they start hammering above me. So we're going to get through this. Still, it's just like you said, someone gives you lemons in life. You got to make lemonade. Just keep pushing on, and it's all there for a reason. So we just keep pushing on.
Oh, all righty. Well, very good. Let's go ahead and add your banner. Let's play your theme song and welcome you. I'm not sure how this is going to work with this. We might have to bail out of this, but we're going to try it with the theme song just because this computer is definitely not working right still. And you okay. Hey, Stacy, we're going to wait one more minute. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to leave you in charge for a minute, and you can just tease people if you will. But I'm going to have to do a complete reset of my computer. And so will you just start your segment without me?
Oh, sure.
Would that be okay?
Sure. So,
all righty. So I'll put you in charge, and I'll disappear, and I'll be back, and I'll join you in about 3 minutes. How's that sound?
Okay. I'll play host for a bit. I'll talk to the people.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. I'll see you in a bit. So what I wanted to do, and for those of you who are not familiar with me and what I do, I am a Pilates teacher as my profession, and I spent 20 years teaching people, educating people on the importance of maintaining a healthy body, because this is all you get and it needs to last a lifetime. So I have kind of gone off the beaten path of what mainstream fitness has drilled into us for years and debunked a lot of these myths that we've been told, basically to sell you a product. Very rarely does your gym ever call you on the phone and say, hey, how's your workout going? And they're typically just looking for, your monthly membership. And in all honesty, they don't care if you show up as long as they get paid. So it's $1 billion business. And anytime that there's big numbers involved, there's always a little gray area just to hook you in the door. So I tried to dissolve all of that and really break it down into what is the benefit to you? What is going to make your body last a lifetime? So there's a bunch of stuff out there over the years that we've been told that don't work, okay? Because otherwise we'd be the healthiest society ever. And instead, let's find the things that do work. Let's, dissect it out. So I've come up with a bunch of myths, what I call fitness myths. We're going to really dig into one today, but because that's all we have time for. And Steve will tell you I tend to chat a bit. But my top 3 are, 1, the shoulders do not go back, okay, at all. So shoulders do not go back. And we hear this all the time. Pull your shoulders back, pull your shoulders back. When I pull my shoulders back, you basically disconnect them from the rest of your body. Okay, so if you want your abdominals to work, stop pulling your shoulders back, because that's the only way. They don't work. It disconnects your body from your shoulders from the rest of your body, which will bring me to my next myth. And we're going to talk about these in the next few weeks into more of a deep dive into this. But the next one is your muscles work as a system. They do not work as groups. So we always hear biceps, triceps. I'm working bis and tris today if you want to get into the gym lingo. Or I'm working my hamstrings and my quads. Well, you're dissecting your body out. Your body doesn't operate like that. Your body operates as the skeletal muscular system. So you have systems in the body that run it, not muscle groups, okay? Muscle groups are, yes, have specific jobs in terms of movement, but in terms of as a system, they have function, okay? So Your body, I always say we die because we stop functioning, not because we stop looking good. So your muscles have function. They help return the blood to the heart. They move you from place to place. So muscles are not just for looks. They're not just for pretty, okay? So that's going to bring me to our topic of the day. And we are going to talk about the core, okay? The core of the body. Da-da. I wish I had a drum roll here for Steve with a drum roll, because the core of the body is not your abdominals. I'm sorry, it's not. People keep working their abs saying, I'm doing core work. The core of your body, by my definition, okay, which I think my definition is correct, if you actually look at function, the core of your body is your respiratory system, okay? Well, what does that have to do with your abdominals? Well, your abdominals aid in exhalation. That is their function. So when you go into anatomy and study anatomy and physiology, okay, you find out the functions of your muscles. You know, your central nervous system is your wiring for your body. So that is specific to certain muscles for movement, which gets controlled by your brain. But the muscles themselves then have particular function. So the job of this hair is making me crazy today. I'm so sorry. The function of your muscles is basically to hold up your bones. Okay, so we have all these bones in our body. There's 206 of them, and they have muscles that hold them up isometrically. Okay, so for the ladies in the audience, in school, I don't know, I could be aging myself here, but we used to do this to help develop, you know, I must increase my bust. So it doesn't really work like that, but it was something to do. So, but typically that's what is considered isometric contractions, which is basically equal amounts of contraction of the muscles around the bones in order to hold them upright. If you don't have equal amounts of contractions on the bones, you're going to slouch to one side. You're not going to be even in how you stand. You know, it throws the body off of alignment. So the muscle has that job. The core of the body is to aid in all of the other systems. No system is an island in and of itself. If one is off, they are all off. So they work together in symmetry. So when they stop working in symmetry, that's when we have a problem. So what happens is you inhale through your nose. We like to inhale through our nose. I inhale through my nose and exhale through the nose. There's all kinds of ways to breathe. If you go by function, it only is logical to breathe in and out through your nose just because your respiratory system is a vacuum. Okay, so anybody who studied vacuums in school knows that they have to be consistent through one opening in, you know, for entry and exit. Otherwise, if you break the seal for a vacuum, then, you know, it's like popping a balloon. Okay, so just so we understand that. So in order to strengthen that respiratory system, you have to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. So there's muscles up here in the nasal passages, and there's actually muscles that control that breathing system from the nose all the way down to your pelvic floor. So it takes up pretty much the majority of your body. So yes, your abdominals are part of that, but because the abdominals only aid in exhalation, we have to look at what controls inhalation. We don't just exhale. We inhale and exhale. So there has to be an equal amount of strength there between both functions, okay? So I always say you can live without your abs, okay? A lot of us don't have them. Somehow we manage to survive, but if your breathing goes, you're screwed, okay? That's your immune system. So a lot of this, you know, kind of dovetails into the situation we're in now as the world is dealing with a pandemic, and people that have weak immune systems are the ones that are the most vulnerable. It doesn't mean that that's just your draw, the cards you drew in life. That means that you can do something about it. That means that you need to strengthen your core, okay? So doesn't that make a lot more sense? Not only that, people hate to work their abs. It's way easier to sit on the couch and breathe than it is to do sit-ups. So we know that too. So we're making things a little more simple and things that are a lot more logical and things that are open to everybody. Not everybody can lay down on the ground and do sit-ups. When you get to be 80, that gets harder and harder and harder as you go through life. So fitness should be something that you should be able to do forever, not until your body breaks. Okay? So once your body breaks, that's when everyone stops doing the things they love. So to me, that's not really exercise. If you can't do it for life, it's not really good for you. So it should be something you can do for life. So core of your body, it ain't your abs. So take a deep breath in and exhale another one out. And just continue to do that, because that's going to be the best thing for your body. That'll strengthen your abs right there. You don't even have to lay on the ground. That's it. Back to Steve.
Thank you, Stacey. You just should run the rest of this show. You're doing great. Hey, I thank you for saying that breathing through the nose and exhaling through the nose is good. That's in my meditation practice, that's the way I like to breathe. So when I become conscious of my breathing, I prefer that. I've done many times where people say, okay, in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And it always just seems like, it just didn't feel comfortable for me. And you explained why, because
there's one more part to that too, because when you actually study the central nervous system, they're very specific on how the nerves are. I said it's always like how you wire a house. You're not going to turn on light switches and all the lights go on. There's specific switches for specific parts of your electrical system in your own home. Your body's exactly the same way. So you have nerves that run through the spinal cord, and they then branch off into specific areas of the body, so that, I know that if somebody's having an arm or shoulder issue, I have to look at the brachial plexus, which is in the neck. So it's in your cervical spine, right where your cervical spine connects to your thoracic spine or your chest area. So to look in specific areas to look for any types of compressions, tight muscles, weak muscles, things like that. That's where you need to go and start to restore that area of the body in order for it to function properly. So the respiratory system is the only system of the body that actually has two different nerve lines that makes it function. So if one fails, you got a backup. It's the only system in the body that has a backup. So, for anyone who's ever had a pinched nerve or whatever, that'll weaken a muscle. That's it. You got no backup. So the only way that you can, restore that is to decompress the muscle on the nerve or strengthen the muscles around the nerves. But with your respiratory system, you have a backup. So your mouth is your secondary function, not your primary function. So there's a lot that happens up in here in the nose in terms of filtering air and any type of toxins that go through. We have the adenoids, we then have the tonsils. And so your body has this defense, almost like a lock system, that if the germs get past the nose, they still have the tonsils to get past before they get into the lungs. So those two sentries protect your lungs, because without these, things don't go so well.
Right. Yeah. No, big breathing. And the other thing I like about what you were talking about with the breathing with the lungs is that whenever I try to, get my brain and my heart in coherence with each other, it's always through breathing. It's not through my abs.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I said it's a system. It's a system. We just don't give it enough credit. We've been dissected out because the medical community, the way it operates now is, one doctor does this, one doctor does that. You're constantly running around from one person to the other to get a whole body together, when it's really just one system. And if you just, troubleshoot it, you can figure out what's wrong, just by backing it up and starting at the beginning and saying, okay, if I have somebody who doesn't have coordinated movement, the first thing I look at is their breathing. Because if their body's not moving properly, their breathing is way out of sync. And as soon as you get their breathing back in sync, everything coordinates together. So it's really a simple fix. We just make it very, very complicated.
So the number one myth that you debunked today is the core of the body is not our abdominals. It is the respiratory system.
Exactly. It takes a lot of stress because you don't need to come up with a 6-pack anymore or an 8-pack. It's really 8. That's another myth.
And you did not mention, when I was gone, you did not mention the shoulders going back or the muscles work as a system, not as groups.
No, we already covered that. I started with that, Steve. Yeah, I already did that. And then I segued right into the whole, myth of the core. I know. See?
I'm going to have to go back. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch my show to learn from you. Stacey, thank you so much then for joining us this morning. We appreciate that you're a regular coming once a month. We will see you next month. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you so much, Steve. Have a great show.
Okay.
Talk to you soon.
Bye. Well, there is Stacey Redfield. Let me go ahead and give Stacey one more plug here. Look at this, the Pilates method, the Physical Methods Pilates Studio in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. If you are anywhere near Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, go down to the Physical Methods Pilates Studio, or at least give her a call first and make sure that it's okay to come down because of all the social distancing and new rules that we have in the world. And you can figure out how you can, work with Stacey directly at her studio. All righty. Thanks, Stacey. We'll see you next month. All righty. Well, that was great. I appreciate Stacey jumping in and pinch hitting for me while I had to do a computer restart. It seems to be better, although it's a little tiny bit sluggish, but we're just going to keep our fingers crossed that everything's going to work the rest of the show. So thank you, Stacey Redfield. There's her website too. She is and I forgot to mention, she is a author. She is an actress. She is a spokeswoman for different brands, and she does a whole bunch of different fun things. So thanks, Stacey, for joining us on a regular basis. All righty. Well, let's go ahead and welcome our main guest today. And this is going to be Rebecca Glenski. Let's see. Let me double check now. Rebecca Glenski Coppage. Yes, that is a name. That's a mouthful. Rebecca Glenski Coppage. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Thank you so much. It's so good to be here.
It looks like wherever you are in the world, it is cold outside.
I'm in Kansas City, and we are in the middle of an ice snowstorm. So it is very white outside.
All righty. Well, good. Well, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us this morning. Now, Rebecca, we have two rules when we have a first-time guest who comes onto the show. So I'm going to explain those rules, and hopefully you'll be willing to follow them. Rule number one is I will read a short bio intro about who you are so people know who you are, and then I play a first-time guest welcoming song, and coincidentally, it's called the First-Time Guest Welcoming Song theme song. So is that okay?
That's fantastic.
All righty. Well, let me tell people who you are. So Rebecca Glenski Coppage is an author and pediatric nurse practitioner. But like many, Rebecca has spent a good portion of her life struggling to develop self-love. At age 12, she began a battle with eating. She developed an unhealthy relationship with food and her body. Rebecca's turning point came when she decided to finally let go of her perfectionist ways. Her newest book, 100 Days to Self-Love, was published just last month. We're grateful that you're here joining us as it's a newly published book. It is both a devotional and a 100-day odyssey toward becoming the whole person you deserve to be. Finding self-love wasn't easy for Rebecca, but it was necessary in order to find joy. She learned to treat her body with kindness and to love each and every part of herself. You too can learn to make healthy choices, use positive self-talk, and silence that inner voice that says you aren't good enough. Rebecca has been married to her husband, Andrew, for 12 years, and together they have a son and a daughter living in the Kansas City area. Rebecca Glenski Coppage, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All righty, let's play that song, and then we'll have the rest of the time for us to chat.
Sounds good.
Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show before, Rebecca?
No, never.
Well, good. Well, welcome. We like to play something cheerful the first time a person joins us. So when you write your next book and we invite you back in the future, we won't be allowed to play that song ever again. So
okay, but well, one time, I mean, I can add that to my book of I've accomplished it. So
good. So so you wrote this book. It just got published last month. It's 100 Days to Self-Love, and it's really two stories. It's really about being learning to trust yourself and to accept yourself as you are. But it's also the story of the eating disorder and your relationship with food and yourself, your body. Tell us, let's go back to when you were that child, 12 years old. What was going on in your life? What happened that you suddenly thought, oh my gosh, I'm not good enough. I have to somehow, modify.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I cannot remember a time ever in my life where I felt comfortable with my body, even as a young child. I think honestly that I was kind of just born that way. I've never really had anything traumatic happen to me. I had really quite a lovely childhood with a very loving family. And even though I had all of those blessings in my life, I just could not look in the mirror and see what other people saw. I just really struggled to be happy with what I looked like. And, I am kind of a type A person. I have that perfectionistic drive, and that certainly did not help things.
So you said that you had a turning point. I'm going to assume that this, at age 12, you developed these unhealthy behaviors, and we don't have to go through all of the details of what that looked like, but how long did it go on for until you reached a point where you went, okay, this can't continue. I have to, make a change. And when was that?
So there were a couple of different points, actually. When I was a senior in high school, so I was about 17, was the first time that I talked about that I was struggling with this and asked for help. I actually entered an eating disorder unit and was hospitalized for several weeks. And that was the first kind of turning point in fighting my eating disorder. Now, I wouldn't say I came out of that unit feeling healed, but I came out of it with tools to try and learn how to move forward without an eating disorder in my life. But I think, honestly, the biggest turning point was a couple of years ago when I decided that even though I wasn't doing the actions of the eating disorder very much, like I wasn't, restricting myself, I wasn't vomiting, I wasn't doing any of those things, but I still felt so unhappy with who I was and how I looked. And I decided I had had enough of it. And so I went on a journey over these last couple of years to really learn how to love myself.
When you, we'll get into that, but back to when you were your childhood, were your parents aware of this, or was this something that was kind of hidden, and that they didn't, they didn't maybe want to know, or, I mean, what was going on in terms of, that whole dynamic?
So during high school, I kept it very secret. It was, even my closest friends were really unaware of what was going on. And then when I sat down and talked to my parents when I was 17, that was the first time that I really, I had ever talked about it. And they were surprised, but I think that way beneath the surface that maybe they knew, that I was struggling. I think that's a really hard thing for parents to kind of wrap their minds around. I'm a mom and I have 2 children, and I hate to think about them going through struggles like that.
Yeah, no, of course we want we want the best. And, if it's not like blatantly in front of us, we just tend to pretend that it's not there or just don't notice it. So,
yeah.
So let's go to this point where you finally go, you get fed up and you said you had enough. Cause I love that. That's really when things change, because you had even hinted that even though you weren't acting out with certain behaviors any longer, the underlying problem, was still there in that you weren't accepting yourself. So was there a moment, like you said, that last couple of years, and were you already married and a mother at that point, where you finally went? Yeah. So you said enough is enough. I mean, what do you remember an exact moment when something happened where you went, oh my gosh, this has got to change?
Yeah. So actually, we were on a big family vacation in Florida, and my kids wanted me to go swimming in the ocean with them, and I didn't want to because I didn't want to get in a swimming suit. And that was kind of a turning point for me, that, I'm missing out on moments in my children's life, and I'm missing out on moments in my own life because of my discomfort. And so when I came home from that vacation, I got on the phone and I sought out help. I found a nutritionist, I found a therapist, and that was it. There was no turning back.
You mentioned in your bio, or in somewhere on your website, I think I read it, there was a couple of women that you worked with who really were helpful. Tell us about what that part of the story was like. I mean, so you made the decision. You were going to be a good student at that point because you were committed to making a change. But what did these people, what did they do for you that, gave you tools or gave you knowledge to start really making different choices?
Yeah. So my therapist, her name is Christine Ruby, and she, when I first met with her, a lot of it was getting to know each other, kind of talking about what the last several years of my life have looked like. And as we got to know each other a little bit more, she really challenged me. She challenged my thinking process. She challenged, are you sure what you're seeing when you look in the mirror is honestly what what other people see? She was very gentle in the way that she did it, but she very much challenged my thought process, and she taught me how to rethink things in my life, rethink the way that I view other people, the way I view myself. She gave me a lot of tools that I use every single day. She taught me breathing techniques. She taught me what to do when I'm feeling stressed out. She just took my toolbox and filled it. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And my nutritionist, so she specializes in working with women who have eating disorders. And so she taught me, she went back to the basics. She taught me the basics of nutrition. She taught me the basics of structuring food throughout the day. She taught me the basics of incorporating water, incorporating exercise, incorporating stretching your body. She really took the hard part for me, figuring out what to eat and what's healthy. And she made that so much easier.
I think it's great that we find coaches or mentors along the way that are willing to, like hold up a mirror and let us, take an honest look in and see what's going on. And so it sounds like you had a great help, in from both of those people. Personally, I never had, an issue with food, but I certainly did with alcohol. I gave up 4 years ago drinking, and it was one of those things that I, for years and years, I pretended like it was just, a way of relaxing and having, like the transition from like working to, kind of like, downtime. And once I finally got my head around it and said, wait a minute, this is not a healthy behavior, and gave it up, it was, I look back on it and I go, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. And yet it was a big deal because it was many years of like repeating the same basic behaviors over and over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And it was unhealthy. And I knew it. And yet, I continued, along that path. So.
Yeah, I think that, I do spend a fair amount of time in the book talking about my journey with my eating disorder. But I think that the basics of what I talk about really apply to anyone who has ever had a struggle in their life, or have looked in the mirror and not been happy with what they've seen. So I think that, 100 Days to Self-Love is probably a very good resource for people who have struggled with eating or eating disorders. But I also think it's a very good resource just for a general person.
I went ahead and threw the book up on the screen, and the subtitle is Devotions for Learning to Accept and Find Peace with Your Body.
I love it. I love how bright and colorful it is.
Yeah, it's great. Now tell us about the actual book itself. Like, so you said that, some of it is your eating disorder, but also a lot of it is really more of that mindset of being accepting of ourselves, who we are, just as we are, and the belief that we're perfect human creatures, but we just have to accept that.
Yeah. What I did is I kind of modeled it after one of my favorite books, which is called 100 Days to Brave. And the idea of it is that you read just a small amount every single day for 100 days in a row. And by the end of that 100 days, hopefully you will have acquired the tools to better love yourself and accept yourself. And so that was kind of the idea behind naming it 100 Days to Self-Love. So it's broken down into 100 days, and every day has either like a powerful quote or a Bible verse that starts out the reading. And then I talk about, it's broken into five kind of groups. And the first is, learning to accept your mistakes and moving on from them, and knowing that your mistakes don't make who you are in the future. The second part talks about, why is self-love important? Like, why do we need that in our lives? And then, I talk about experiences that I've had that have helped me to learn how to love myself and accept myself better. And then I also talk about how to maintain this thought process as you move forward into the future.
One of the things about, self-love, and I think about it from my own teaching, schooling days, and from Catholic schools where, the idea that, self-love is like almost a conceit or some kind of an ego-driven concept. And so we want to, differentiate between what is healthy self-love and what would not be healthy self-love, and where
Absolutely.
People might resist going there.
Yeah. So, the kind of self-love that I imagine, or that I seek for myself, and that I hope others will seek out, is, the idea that you've got to show yourself some grace, that you're not a perfect person. We weren't created to be perfect, but that's kind of what makes us perfect, is that we're imperfect, and learning how to take those imperfections and use them to the best of your ability. We are taught as a society to love other people, how to be a kind person, how to take care of other people. But I think that we're really lacking in teaching, society how to take care of yourself. If you're not loving on yourself and you're not taking care of yourself, it makes it so much harder to take care of other people.
I want to mention that people should visit your website, and it's RebeccaGlenskiCoppage.wordpress.com, and there's lots of good information there. There's the links to the books. You can go and you're also the author of another book. I don't want to sidetrack us into that, but just tell us about your was it more of a novel, or what was it?
It was, yeah. It was a young adult novel that I published in 2012, and it's loosely based on my high school experience, but it's about a girl who develops a pretty horrific eating disorder, and it follows her through her sophomore year of high school. And so I guess there's kind of a theme in my writing. I write about what I know, and I write about what I'm familiar with. And so yeah, that was my first book.
And I can see that the girl on the cover is handing or teasing the dog with their sandwich. So she obviously isn't eating her lunch herself. She's letting the dog eat it for her.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well, good. So, what do you? So tell us a little bit more, I guess, about the the devotional style that you used. You said the 100 different days. A little bit of a reading, a little bit of an inspirational quote, maybe a Bible verse. Why did you pick that particular style versus some other kind of more like a story about yourself?
I picked that because, first of all, inspirational quotes and Bible verses have played a really big part in who I am. It's a part of who I have been for a long time. I have always loved reading other people's inspirations, and I read the Bible and find that very inspirational as well. And I think that sometimes what other people say can say it better than you can say it. And so I spent a lot of time picking out the quotes and the Bible verses that I wanted to use for my book, because I wanted to inspire other people in the same way that it inspired me.
Very good. I think it's there's many different ways that we can connect with ourselves and with other people. One of the things that I always talk about is the quote by Faulkner that says something. I'm going to paraphrase it. I never know what I think about something until I read what I wrote about it. I used my own writing to help clarify my thinking. Was that part of your process?
Yeah, it absolutely was. Writing this book was challenging, but it also was very rewarding, because by the time I got to the end of the book, I was able to look back and see how far I've come as a person over the last several years. And that's a pretty amazing experience.
Yeah, isn't it funny how we start to write something and we don't realize how much we've changed and grown, from our own experience. We kind of think we're still, you remember, we're hard on ourselves. That talk is like, oh, you're still making the same mistakes. And when we actually sit down and think about it or write it down and document something, we can see how much we've grown over time and years. What was your actual writing style like? How long did it take you to write the book?
Well, so I kind of sat with this idea for several months. I kind of thought I wanted to do it, but I hadn't really sat down and tried writing. I had just had these thoughts kind of floating around in my head. And when I actually finally sat down to write it, it went very quickly. I think I wrote it in about 2 months. But I couldn't stop. I would sit down, I'd start writing, and I couldn't stop. And so it came very, very fast.
So the muse or source energy or God, tapped you on the shoulder and filled you with the words on the page.
That's really what it felt like. Yeah. I had this idea, but I didn't feel motivated to write. And then one day I was like, it's time to do this. And then when I sat down, I really felt like just it all poured out. It was pretty cool.
Wow, that's great. Well, very good. What's next for you? You wrote like a novel, and that was a few years ago. And now you've written this. Do you, I know you're working as a nurse. Do you see more writing in your future?
I do. I really enjoy writing. And my children are a little bit older now. They're 8 and 10. And so I feel like I have a little bit more free time, a little bit more freedom to write. And so I really hope to continue writing. I don't have any projects in the works right now, but I think that will change soon.
Well, very good. Well, I sure appreciate that you joined us this morning. Got up on a cold winter morning and shared with us. What would you, if someone has if there's a young woman, a young girl who has an eating disorder, and let's, eating disorders are more with the females than the men.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone who's struggling with, with eating, and really ultimately it comes down to a self-esteem thing, as it was in your case. But what kind of advice would you give?
Well, the first thing I tell them is there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I think that when you're in the depths of an eating disorder, it feels like there's no way out. And I would just reassure them that things are going to be okay. You can heal from this. But my next recommendation would be to let other people know you're struggling, because until you have a support system around you, helping you kind of deal with it, you're not going to get very far. So I think telling people that you love and that care about you is a really important step in asking for help.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. And you had talked about earlier, the idea of it being a secret. And I know that I carried some secrets with me for many years. And when I went through my own personal awakening and realization that I needed to make changes in my life and couldn't continue to live, there was actually a 30 and a 40-year-old secret that, came out into the open. And once you tell them, they lose their power, and they're no longer, and they were really scary to, go public with them. And now they're just sort of one of those funny things that you talk about without, and there's no more power left inside of them. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's funny. I never would have thought, several years ago that I would be talking about my eating disorder in front of other people. And now it just comes very easily. If what I have to say can help somebody else, then I'm all about sharing.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure to, be a certain way and to, appear like everything's good, and some, and social media, and, I don't know if in some ways it's made it better that we can communicate with more people, but in, the idea that we're putting out there facades or things that aren't necessarily, we're trying to live up to some kind of an expectation or belief, which is our own self-imposed belief, because oftentimes, people reveal something very personal, and you don't want to do this too much, but when someone does that, like, a lot of love and a lot of support goes out for that person.
Yeah.
And ultimately that becomes what you were just saying, that if you share these stories and they no longer are a secret, then they lose their power.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, I sure appreciate your coming on this morning and being part of the American Gumption Morning Show. And special thanks to your friend and my niece, Jamie Cargus, for introducing us. We appreciate that she said, "Oh, my friend Rebecca just wrote a book, and yeah, she'd be perfect for your show." And you were. So I thank you so much for taking the time to share it. Let me throw the book back up there one more time. Actually, we'll put both books up there. My Perfect Little Secret, but the real book that we want you to go out and get today is 100 Days to Self-Love, Devotions for Learning to Accept and Find Peace with Your Body. And you can find those books on Amazon, or you can go to RebeccaGlenskiCoppage.wordpress.com to find out more about Rebecca and to, get links and talk about the books there. So.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, you're very welcome. I appreciate that you, let's see, whoops, there we go. You're very welcome. I appreciate that you joined us this morning. And, as you continue your writing career, you're welcome to come back anytime. And we look forward to what you bring us next.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, good luck.
Thanks. Bye.
All righty. Well, that was Rebecca Glenski Coppage. We thank her for joining us this morning. And again, her website, RebeccaGlenskiCoppage.wordpress.com, and her book, let's see, I'll throw it back up there one more time. There it is, 100 Days to Self-Love, Devotions for Learning to Accept and Find Peace with Your Body. All righty. Well, very good. So that was fun. And a little bit of technical difficulties on my end. I apologize for that, but we got through the show, and it seems like it's okay. So thank you to Stacy, thank you to Rebecca, and tomorrow we have. Let's see where we where do we have, here we go. Tomorrow we have Serenity Sam sing a song, and that's going to be a regular feature. We're going to try it for the next couple of months. We're going to do it every other week on Thursday, and that'll be in the second 15 minutes of the show. And then I'll have a guest on after that. On Friday, Jay Toops from BioRoot Energy. He is the CEO, and his company is committed to turning waste carbons, of which, think about waste carbons. That is like all the trash that we have, all of the human excrement that we have, into fuel alcohol. So he will describe that process. I got to know Jay several years ago, so it's maybe something that is coming in the future that will change the way we think about, getting rid of our waste and getting rid of and our fuel, our fuel consumption. So make us less dependent on carbon-based or petrochemical-based gasolines and that sort of thing. All righty. Well, that's it. So that's Thursday and Friday. Have a great day, everybody. We appreciate it. I'll get out of here just a minute early or so today. Have a great day. I will see you all tomorrow.